You have just decided to listen to podcast 122. Do you know what waste is? Can you see it? Can you see it everywhere? Let's see it together.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this Lean series. This Lean series is a little bit basic, but I hope I'm explaining it in a way that it's interesting and applicable to you. And I think the key thing is not what we know, but what we do with it, right? So if you're hearing these basic concepts and this time you're seeing a vision for how can I implement this? How can I even do small things like implementing this, at your desk or in your office or at home in your room? Like, let's just say you start somewhere small. If you're getting the concepts here in these basic Lean series, these ideas and able to implement it, then that's the key, because we can learn all the things that we want to in life, but the difference is when we actually implement it. So I really hope that you're enjoying this. We are just getting started when it comes to Lean. There are literally hundreds of fantastic Lean concepts. And then once you think you know a thing or two, at least this happens with me, then it gets even deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you start to understand more and more. And then you're like, wait a minute, I didn't understand this at all. And then it keeps going and going and going. And the Lean journey just becomes this fantastic thing. And man, I just love Lean. And so today we're going to talk about the 8 wastes. And this might seem like a basic concept, but we're going to make it interesting today. And I just played with my kids on the trampoline, so I am amped up. I'm ready to go. I got blood flowing. In fact, you may hear some of the kids in the background playing around in the backyard. If you ever wanted to feel like you're a part of a community and, around a bunch of noisy, joyful, happy children that are just playing and there's just tons of chaos, and you need to come over to my house. You have an open invitation anytime. But I just went out there and played with them. You can hear them in the background. I'm amped and ready to go. I've got the energy of 11 little kids in me right now. Let's do this. So what am I excited about in life right now? Well, here in a little bit at 5:30, I'm going to have a Lean huddle with my kids. And we're going to talk about Lean improvements for the day, and we're going to cover some of these concepts, and we're going to continue a culture of continuous improvement. In fact, it's funny, we were talking to some close friends last night at dinner, and they were talking to us about possibly, hosting foster children, being a foster family. And the husband spoke up and said, well, we need to get our family in order too. We need to get things clean. We need to get things decluttered. We need to organize our own house before we, foster other kids. And Katie and I were, just sitting there being patient, listening and loving, because they're fantastic people. They're so much better than we are. And, but there was this point where there was just this look of defeat, like, well, we're just not organized enough. And I was just thinking, oh my gosh, they need 2-second Lean. They need Lean principles. They need to know about morning huddles and 5S and 3S and the 8 wastes. And if they started a huddle system with their family, they could get this culture going if they started to see these things and really let it annoy them and then make incremental steps to make improvements. And I just thought that was super funny. But what I'm excited about is implementing these Lean cultures with people. In fact, today, one of my favorite clients that I work with all the time, there's a group of field engineering leaders that lead the field engineering efforts throughout the company, and they keep track of performance and allocation of field engineers and where people are dispatched and training and boot camps and all of these things, and it's pretty cool. And we just rolled out using WhatsApp, which is an app on the phone for anybody who might not know, the scaling of Lean videos. And today we got 3 or 4 videos. We got one about setting up total stations, one about mobilizing onto a project, one about how to do monuments around a building for secondary control. And then there was another one, I can't remember exactly what it was, but super cool. Oh, no, it was about shooting elevations accurately on a slab-on metal deck on a high-rise. And if we get these Lean systems going, if we get these videos taken, not only will we be proud of what we're doing and share, but other people will see as we see and start to scale up excellence. So I'm really excited. How many places could we implement Paul Akers methods and get people huddling and making constant improvements every day? So that's what I'm excited about right now. So before we get into the meat of the podcast, let me talk about some feedback that I got from a listener. So here it is. Jason, I've really enjoyed your Elevate Construction podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to start your business and in sharing your knowledge, skills, and changing the industry for the better. There are a couple of episodes that have raised some questions that I'm hoping you can help me out with. One of your episodes, you talked about creating leader standard work for each of your positions, from field engineer to assistant superintendent to project superintendent to general superintendent. If you're willing, I would love to see what your leader standard work looks like for each of your positions. Number 2, you mentioned that you hate having bosses except for one. You said you will always do anything Brad Nelson, or you would always do everything Brad Nelson asked you to do because he was the greatest boss ever, greatest leader ever, greatest person ever. I know Brad, and he recruited me. I never had the chance to work with him, but only heard amazing things about him. I would like to know what made Brad the greatest boss you've ever had. What made him so successful? What made him the greatest leader at HP? I would like to develop these type of skills myself. Anyway, there's a third question here that I'll cover later. So I'll do number 1 at a later podcast. I'll talk about the leader standard work for each of those positions and answer that. I think that's fantastic. Ooh, there you can hear some of the kids in the background. But I'll answer number 2 today because I love talking about this, and I want to talk about this today because Brad Nelson is one of the most amazing human beings on this earth. And if we can emulate how he is, even just a little bit, then I think we're going to be on the right track. So again, he's my favorite boss ever, ever, ever of all time. So here are the things that he did that I appreciated that makes him the best. Number 1, he clearly communicated his expectations in the form of a vision, meaning he didn't talk about dreams and stuff like that, but he inspired you with the vision of what he wanted you to do. He would talk about why he designed the trailers and why he designed the logistics complex the way he did and where he wanted parking and the routes over to the construction project and how we were going to set up the fence and how we were going to treat trade partners and the ones that he selected to set us up right and how he wanted to run the interiors and manage the schedule. Everything was explained. Everything was super clear. He was a teacher. He was a constant teacher. If you think about a great leader, think about Brad in the sense that mentoring, teaching, constantly saying those things that you needed to know in order to be your best self. Now, most leaders are like, I'm not going to be presumptuous and teach you. I'm not going to take the time. You don't need me. Why am I going to waste their time? But Brad did it in a non-presumptuous, non-arrogant way, in a way where he was just enthusiastic and excited about what he wanted to do. There's a difference between a superintendent that says, here's how I did the logistics, this, and this, and you're like, talking at somebody versus, hey, and if we do this, and we put the gang boxes over here and the connexes over here, we can have full range with the forklift and the truck. Somebody that's really excited, there's a big difference there. And he just communicated that enthusiasm and that intentionality with which he did everything. I'm talking trailers, logistics, how to run the job, relationships even, how we were going to treat the architect, the owner, and how we were going to interact with these people. Everything was clearly communicated. Number 2, he truly cared about you. He was never judgmental. I was always surprised by the fact that he was smarter than I was, and he was more capable and more experienced. He always made you feel like you were the smartest person in the room. And he always just tried to help you. And he was the best person that I know, because to me, the definition of being a good person is that you help others on their path. And he didn't care whether you were black or white, bond or free, male or female. I'm being serious about this. I'm not being flippant. He didn't care what you were. He was going to help you where you were and help you to your next step. You could go into his office anytime, call him anytime, ask for help anytime, just anything, anytime. I remember one time I was really starting to learn scheduling, and I used a piece of site work, basically the end of the project, to really learn how. And I had all these sequences together, and I did it in a weird way, how my brain works. This was when I was learning. And I put everything on this big, long piece of paper with a bunch of stickies, and they were out of sequence. And I said, Brad, will you help me look at this schedule? And he came in, and the schedule looked like crap, and it wasn't the right way to do it, but he could tell that I was learning. He was like, okay, well, here's this sequence. Well, if you move this one over here and tie this one here and do that over here. And I was like, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I was able to arrive at the right answer myself, because he didn't say, oh, that's not the way to do it, tear me down. He built on the building blocks that I had, and it was really fantastic. One thing that was always special to me, he would always laugh at my jokes. I think I'm funny. I know I'm not funny, but it's important that I think I'm funny, which means that if he laughed at my jokes, like he just made me feel special, like I was relevant. Here's this person that, may not even have time, has a huge family, all these responsibilities, and yet took time to be with one person at a time, me, and make me feel special. He would always laugh at my jokes. The other thing is he knew everything about everything. If you talk to a general super, and Brad's a general superintendent, he can be anything. He could be the president of a company, but there's a difference between generals and operations managers and directors, where you talk to them and you can tell that they think they know a thing or two, and they have these walls up they don't want you to see behind the veil, right? And I remember, the general superintendents of old, they're like, hey, don't ever let them figure you out. Well, Brad is different. He would let you figure him out, but he's so smart and he's so knowledgeable and he knows so much about everything that he had the confidence to be himself. He had the confidence to be kind. He had the confidence to be transparent, but he also had the confidence to make you feel special and to help you to get to the answer and make you feel like you came up with the answer. And then he enabled you to do your job. I remember so many times he's like, Jason, you're in charge of mobilization. You're in charge of interiors. You're in charge of MEP. You're in charge of BAM. You're, on and on and on. And he would set up those clear expectations. He would set up the guidepost and he would constantly do walks. But when he was walking, he wouldn't be like, where's this? Where's that? Where's this? Where's that? He's like, well, tell me how it's going, man. Like, what are the cool things you're doing? And I would get into it. I'm like, here's that. And this is this and that schedule. And he's like, that is awesome. You're doing such a great job. Hey, remember that, that enthusiasm was there. He enabled you to do your job without micromanagement. I don't work for the Table Group, but I have to do a shout out for the 3 Signs of a Miserable Job, or The Truth About Employee Engagement, that book. Brad gave me connection, relevance, and measurement. He was the first one that ever gave this to me, and probably the only one. And when it was given, it was over the top fantastic. And really, I don't think I would have ever left working with Brad had I not known that I would have been transferred. So, connection. Brad hooked me up with my naturopathic doctor. He hooked me up with resources to figure out what I was allergic to because I used to have panic attacks. He helped me through health issues. He'd help me through church issues. He'd help me through schooling. I was doing school at the time when I was with him. He invited us and my family over for dinner and to go out and swim in the pool. I've been out on the lake with him before. He really connected with the people that he cared about. Number 2, relevance. He would always tell me why I mattered. And he was the first person that talked me into the fact that I could do something in this world, meaning that there are people all throughout my life. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't. You're stuck. You're just going to do this for the rest of your life. He was the first person to tell me that I could do things. He used to say, Jason, you can do anything. Jason, you've got this. Jason, you're better at this than anybody. Man, I need you. Always telling me why I was relevant. And when he gave me a challenge and he was like, you're the only one that can do this. If I could do it or couldn't do it, I didn't even care because I for damn sure was going to get it done once he told me I could, because he gave me something to believe in. And, just a little personal note for me, there have been times in my life where I wake up and I'm fighting or arguing with somebody and I've just had a bad dream. And it's this nasty fight or, with a previous, boss or somebody, and there's just this negative voice and I wake up having this nightmare. And just these different times where I remember these negative voices in my life. And sometimes I'll call Brad and I'm like, hey, I had a dream about you. It was appropriate. And I just kid around with him because dreams, if you say you have a dream about somebody, it's kind of weird. But I'm like, I had a dream that you were like praising me and giving me a compliment. And I woke up with like such a hopeful, wonderful, beautiful feeling the next day that it just lasted like the rest of the week. Like there are like 3 people in my life, maybe 3 or 4, that were just positive voices in my life that told me I could do it, told me I was special enough, told me I was good enough. And it really made the difference. I'm not going to remember everybody, but Brad Nelson was one of the first. Drew Rosick was one of the second. I worked with him at DPR. Ryan Young, when I worked with him at DPR, he always told me that I could do things. Brandon Montero, these are people where their voices, because they believed in me and told me I could do things, stuck with me, and now I believe it. Like right now, starting Elevate Construction, doing podcasts, are because Brad told me I could do it, are because Judo told me I could do it, are because Ryan said that I was going to change the whole industry, is because Brandon Montero said I would change the lives of thousands of people. And finally, I started to believe them. I didn't come up with that on my own. I started to believe them. And now, even if somebody thinks that I'm foolish, even if somebody thinks I'm misguided, I'm giving everything to my life right now. You know what I mean? I could, that One Republic song where it says, I gave every second that this world could give, or I lived every second this world could give. I'm literally doing that. All of my money, all of my time, all of my seconds, all of my everything to give to other people to help in any way I can was because these positive voices believed in me. And so Brad was always great at giving relevance. And then the last one is measurement. He gave me very specific measurements. He says, I need this stairwell done by this date. And this is how I want you to do it. You have this, and this resource. You tell me what you need. I have your full support. On we go. And if somebody came and complained about me or about something, they were like, well, let's go talk to Jason or let's talk together, but it'll be all good. You know, he was so supportive and wonderful that way. And he really cared about people first. You could always tell he cared about people first. And so I did a podcast with Brandon Montero. It's not out yet. It's called What Does It Mean to Be a Good Person? And I believe the definition of that is a good person helps people along their way. And Brad Nelson was that person. And if you ever have a chance to work with him, don't take advantage of it. Don't take it for granted. Go enjoy that experience. And if you have a boss like that, maybe it's not him, maybe it's a different person, then you go up to that person, you say, thank you, I love you, I appreciate your leadership, you are special to me, you always will be, and you tell them how important their leadership is because it's fantastic. So for the person that wrote to me and heard that previous podcast, I want you to know that that's my answer, and I hope that we can all learn something about leadership from this wonderful person. You know, not from me, but from this person's example. So let's get into the podcast today. Here's some conflict for us. Waste is all around you, and you don't even notice it. So let me tell you a quick story, and I love this story. I used to tell this in orientations, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but I'm going to tell you again because it's that good. In fact, I think I have told you, but let me tell you again. I remember asking for our lean desks at the research laboratory to be built, and these were, I think they're 36 or they're 3'6". I can't remember. I don't math very well. That would mean they're 42 inches tall. But anyway, they were tall desks. We had plan table chairs. They were in an L. They had a little mitered corner. They were lean desks, so you could stand up behind them or use your plan table chair. They were really, really cool desks. Anyway, we came up with a design, and Ryan Young came up with a way to actually optimize the material. You could cut the tops for 2 desks from 1 sheet of plywood. Really nice material. They were all sanded. They had a spot for your foot. They were really great. So they were designed, and they were all designed on, I think they were designed on SketchUp is what Ryan used. Anyway, so we had these, and I told the carpenter foreman that was working for us, the GC at the time, I was like, I want 8 of these things built, and I want you to discuss the best way to do it. I think the best way to do it would be to just come into this 5-wide trailer over here and just cut everything right in here and build them right here in place. And then worst case, we just vacuum up the sawdust, or we can put down visqueen or something. But basically, let's get this done. And now, the first waste was I didn't clearly explain my expectations. Okay, so it was first my fault. So I'm not blaming it on them, but it is a fun story. So this is what happened. And I tell this in orientations to explain the 8 ways. So first, they go out and they cut all of the material before they assemble it. And I didn't know this because I was off doing something. I can't remember. I'm sure it was important and I was working, but I came back and all the material was cut, and I'm like, okay, well, we need to assemble one to see if it fits. So they assembled one, and the pieces didn't work. So they had to cut all the stock pieces for all of the 8 desk bundles of material that they had, all 8 of them. So they went through wasted motion, over-processing, defects, movement, transportation of materials, all of these things over there. So that was mistake number 1. And then they got one assembled, and it was wrong. It didn't have the mitered corner. It didn't have that angled corner on it, and it wasn't assembled right. So I literally am not making this stuff up. They had to go recut all of the bundles of all of the piles again to get this corner right. Okay, so it's not funny, I'm sorry. But then they assembled them, and they assembled all 8 of them, and so they have them, and they get ready to move them in. And I'm going to give you 3 seconds to figure out what happened next. I bet you can guess what happened next. Okay, you all guessed it. We had to rip out the doors to get these darn things into the trailer. So not only did they have to move them from the parking lot, but all the way into the trailer, but we had to disassemble 2 doors through the lunchroom area to get these darn things in there. And this took like 2 days. It was like 9.5 hours. And when we did 8 desks later on, it took 3.5, 4 hours the second time. So here's all these wastes that we have at play, right? Okay, so not using the genius of the team. We'd already talked about cutting them in place, right? Batching all of the work and cutting them all at once instead of doing a mock-up, making sure they had it right. There was over-processing, there was motion, there were defects, there was transportation, all of these wastes in there. Then they had to do it again. And then we had the wasted transportation getting them over to the trailer. And then we had another waste of over-processing to remove the doors and put the doors back on. And then we have the waste of waiting because we could have got it done in 4.5 hours instead of the 9.5 hours that it took, and all because we didn't use the genius of the team. So let me check here. So we had overproduction. We overproduced right away by making 8 instead of 1 as a mock-up. We waited twice as long as we needed to. There was unnecessary transportation, moving them from the outside to the inside. Overprocessing by cutting them 2 or 3 times. Excess inventory of parts, which because of defects had to be corrected and overprocessed, right? There were too much of this material outside, and so the inventory caused unnecessary movement because of defects, and all of it because we didn't use the genius of the team. We didn't leverage the team's creativity. Anyway, this is a real story, and I love this story because to those carpenters, they were moving fast, they were getting it done, and they were proud. But there's like 17 different steps in there that they could have used to get it done faster and to do a darn good job and reduce and eliminate waste. Because motion is not what we're looking for. We're actually looking to reduce motion. And so this was one of the best revelations for me, is knowing that motion and movement is actually a waste. I mean, unnecessary movement, wasted motion by craft labor, measuring twice, cutting once, right, is the way to do it. And if you don't do that, you have this extra wasted motion, then that's waste. And so when we have a bunch of workers working fast and busy, that's not necessarily lean. I mean, you might feel better, but motion is actually waste. Motion, when we're first starting out in construction, moving all around, doing treasure hunts, running everywhere, motion, that's waste, right? So, even at church or even at home, like how often do we look busy so that we get credit for things? How often do people, they're like, oh, I just worked 80 hours. I'm so busy. I'm doing such a good, well, that motion and all of that extra work is waste. Like it's just waste. So anyway, let me talk about the 8 wastes here really quickly after that example, and I'll go through them one by one. Overproduction. Oversizing space, overly conservative structural connections, oversized mechanical or electrical systems, excess material and subsequent wastes to handle, more detail and design that's needed, too many materials out on site, things being produced before they're actually needed. This is all waste. And overproduction is the mother of all waste because it creates inventory. So inventory, ordering more material than is needed just in case, right? So that inventory, having things that are stockpiled on the project, and then you have to move them and you have to count them and you have to protect defects and you have to, do all of these things, fix damaged materials and parts and things like that. So overproduction is the mother of all waste because it creates inventory. So I call those two the mothers or the parents of waste, of all other waste. Waiting on information, waiting on permits, waiting on inspections, waiting on earlier trades, waiting on material and or equipment. Unnecessary transportation is another one. Moving material or earthwork multiple times instead of just taking it to its original location once. Overprocessing is number 4. Requests for information, unnecessary submittals, unnecessary contract terms, unnecessary and untimely reporting, anything, 2x4s that have to be cut, or anything that has to be done over and over and over. Even these podcasts, do I record a podcast and then it's done right away, edited right the first time, or do I have to then check it, then we fix it, and then we check it, and then we fix it? Is there over-processing in anything that we do? Unnecessary movement, wasted motion by craft labor. Remember that measure twice, cut once will reduce this. We don't want people having to move, look busy, walk around, do treasure hunts. Motion leads to injuries and wears people out and tires them down. Motion is waste. Defects, rework, design, and coordination errors and omissions, any mistakes that we have, lack of quality, defects is a waste. And then 8, the biggest one, unused employee creativity, unused employee genius, unused employee, buy-in, whatever, not leveraging the means and methods and the input into the solutions by the collective team is one of the greatest wastes. So these are the principles. And let me tell you how I use them. I usually provide all of the workers on a project site, but especially the foreman, little cards that on one side have the 8 wastes, and on the back side, they have the 3S or the 5S system. I give them the cards, and I make sure everyone, every day in the worker huddles, that I hold up your cards, here you go, and we tell a story about it, and we get them to see and to hate the 8 wastes. I told you about the cat poop in the story yesterday, right? Like, we want people to be just as annoyed with waste as you'd be annoyed with somebody scratching your car, or if a cat pooped on your carpet or something bad like that happened. Like, we want it to completely annoy you. So we would talk about those things daily. And on the project sites, and I've been very successful with this, by the way, I have lean videos to prove it. We would require lean videos at least one a week from our contractors. And they would do it because they learned the system. They had the 25-minute crew preparation huddle. The foreman had read 2-second lean, and they would do these. Now, we found out you don't have to pay people to make improvements, but in construction, we did have to incentivize with gift cards the videotaping of those ideas, because people didn't want to share and record. So we were like, here's a gift card, $25, $50, whatever, if you record it. So Paul Akers is right. You don't have to incentivize people to do their job, but we had to incentivize people to shoot the videos. But then we would share those videos in foreman huddles, in worker huddles, and it was fantastic. And we started to see as a group, and we did it because we created a culture, and everyone was starting to make improvements and speaking up. And I told you there were 5 or 6 different times where different workers would hold the inspector or the owner or the designers accountable as they're walking through the job, holding them accountable to certain behaviors. When I was nowhere around, they were by themselves. They're like, hey, we don't have food on the job. Hey, you need to wear your glasses. Hey, this is what we do here. This is an unsafe area. How often could you say that any of your workers on site would uphold the standards that you uphold yourself in front of an owner when you're not there? This is what happens. And the Lean Core Foreman training, there's a 90-minute training, really kind of tied everything together. We had them read the book 2-Second Lean. We did the culture. We had the huddles. We were doing the videos. But foreman would reply back, hey, I now know why you're structuring all these systems now that I've seen this Lean Core 90-minute training. So there's a little suggestion for you. But the system, again, is learn the 8 wastes. Let them really piss you off when you see them. Like when you see a pile of trash, or when you see a waste, or when you see workers going back and forth 100 feet to their water jug or whatever, like you should sit there and be like, oh my gosh, this annoys me. I'm so upset about this. I'm going to fix it right now. That's the point we have to get to get leverage and to actually make incremental improvements. And then you'll make 2-second lean improvements, and then you'll take before and after videos to scale up excellence. And the current condition is, right now, most of us, we don't see waste. And we actually organize waste. Even if we clean, we just organize wasted stuff that we should be getting rid of. And we move waste, and we inventory waste, and we count waste, and we fix waste, and we overprocess waste. But why don't we remove waste? And it's because we don't see it. So let me tell you a really quick analogy I really like. It's called the river of waste. This goes better with a drawing. I would draw a river with a boat on the left and rocks, throughout the river. And I would tell you the boat has to get from point A to point B. Now, typically in our industry, if you want to get that boat down the river of waste, what would you do? You would raise the water level so that your boat could just float on by the rocks, right? And that is analogous to us in construction just throwing money at a problem and inventory and manpower and crews and all of these additional resources and processing. And we're like, hey, just pay whatever you got to do to get it done. Put as many people as you need to put on it. Raising the water level is analogous to raising resources. Like if we don't want to deal with problems on site, we just go throw another crew on it, right? But lean thinking says lower the water level. Not only do you still see the original rocks and roadblocks that were in the river, but now you see ones that are lower down below that maybe would have been a problem, but now you see. So lower the resources, lower the deadline, lower the money, lower the man counts, and actually focus on removing the roadblocks and get the boat down the river from one end to the other. So instead of raising the water level, which means increase the cost and the manpower and just throwing resources at it, lower the water level, meaning give it the right crew size, the right amount of money, budgeted at the right milestone, and remove the roadblocks, and you'll still get the boat down the river, but you won't waste all those resources. I just recorded a chapter about flow in the Elevating Construction Superintendent's book, and I'm talking about the example of Parade of Trades in that book, and the groups that play the game Parade of Trades, where they have the dice where you can roll a 6 or a 1, and there's a lot of variability in there. They have a manpower count of 380 with an inventory level of 10, and they finish in 26 weeks. But if you get a die that will only roll 3s and 4s and 2s, right, there's a good flow, they will finish with 100 less people, meaning 280 people with inventory levels of like 2 or 3, and they'll finish 4 weeks earlier. Why? Because they were in a flow instead of starting, stopping. So when we have problems, are we raising the water level or are we lowering the water level? If we raise it, that means we're throwing resources at it. If we lower it, that means we're keeping resources where they need to be and making money, and we're focusing on the removal of roadblocks first. So here's the challenge. Find a way to get everyone to know about the 8 ways. Create systems to 3S every morning. Give people the time to make improvements and then to huddle about it. Scale through videos and share in your huddles. This system really works. And if you can get your departments, your family, your groups, your crews to see the 8 ways, then you can really make a difference, because then you can fix them. But you can't fix anything unless you see it first. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.